Hello, dear friends. This is Jeannie from Dollhouse Rescue. Welcome back to my workshop. I am starting on another house tonight. Now, this one is a new house for me. I've not had it very long. I bought it a couple of months ago. You may have seen a video where I bought it at the I-80 barn sale. Now, it's not in bad shape. It's a 1951 Cohn, and I had another one just like this that used to sit right back there on that shelf, and my grandma lived there. Well, because I bought another one, I have sold grandma's house, so she is not real happy with me. But she's going to temporarily stay in the split level that's still back there on the shelf. It's completely furnished for her until her new house has been rehabbed. So let's get going. This house is not in bad shape. It's got a little bit of, paint here and there that needs to be, first of all, it's got to be cleaned. And then a little bit of paint to touch up here and there, not bad. The biggest problem with this house is it's missing a wall down in here, the back of the utility room, which I have a picture of somebody's original wall already printed off, ready to go in there on a piece of foam core board. We'll get that easily fixed and put together. But there's a little bit bigger issue up here because when I bought this house, apparently this section of wall apparently had been missing, and somebody has fabricated that out of metal. It's been nicely fabricated, but it's, blank white inside and outside, and I want it to look like it's supposed to look on the original. So I do have print-offs of the original wall, and I'm going to try to mount those on here and see if I can make this look like a nice house again. This house is, it's 95% in nice shape. It needs cleaned up. It needs a little touch-up. But this is kind of an eyesore, and I want to make that right. So here is my plan. I've got a plan on this. My plan is to clean it, do the paint, and do most of that off camera. I'm just going to tell you what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to do it. And then spend more time showing you how I'm going to try to fix this and see if we can make this house look nice again for my grandma, because she likes this house. She likes this floor plan, and it's identical to the one that she had before. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time showing you my painting and so on. I have done that on several videos. In fact, I have done this exact same house on other videos. I've touched up the paint and so on. So we're just going to do a real quick overview for you and spend most of our time working on this wall. Here's the cleaning overview. I like to, first of all, spray rubbing alcohol. This is just rubbing alcohol on a paper towel. I never spray liquid inside the house because I don't want to get liquid down where I can't get it out, where it might sit and cause rust in the future. So I always go on my rag and then wipe stuff off. After I wipe it off with rubbing alcohol, every surface, then I'll go over it again with another cleaner. This is the cleaner I'm going to use on this house. This is Awesome Cleaner that I got at the Dollar Tree. I've used it before on houses. I use it around the house a lot, and I really like it. So we're going to use that. And again, I'm going to spray it right on my paper towel and then wipe off the house with a wet paper towel, not spray any liquid into the house. Now, a good idea, if you have not worked with your house before or this cleaner before, is to do a test spot like up here underneath or on the very bottom underneath here. Do a test spot with your cleaners to make sure you're not going to harm your paint. Make sure it doesn't get gummy or remove paint too quickly. You don't want to use too much liquid. You don't want to rub too hard. You can rub your graphics off, and that's kind of sad when you do that. I've done that. You don't want to do that. All right, let's get it cleaned up. All right, I've gone over with rubbing alcohol. I'm going to go over it again with my Awesome Cleaner. It wasn't real dirty, which is another thing I kind of do with that rubbing alcohol, is judge how dirty it is and how much cleaning it's going to take. It wasn't real dirty. I think another coat going over it with the Awesome Cleaner is going to do it. Okay, every surface has been cleaned off twice, first with rubbing alcohol and then with the Awesome Cleaner. A couple of things of note. I've got the roof here, and when I wash every surface, I wash this, and I also wash the bottom of the roof. I wash the bottom of this, and I wash the bottom of the space floor. So every surface has been washed, and I like to do that just in case there's any nicotine or any lingering dirt that's out of sight. The other thing I like to do is I like to take the chimney off. I like to have the original chimney, and this does have that, but I like to take it off because, first of all, it's usually real dirty there, and it was. And the other thing is, when you put these on the shelf, they're that much shorter with the chimney off. So most of my houses, when they're up on the shelf, after I have them painted, I keep the chimney off to make more room for more houses. I'll keep the chimney, and I'll keep it like close to the house here somewhere, so I'll always have it. But I like to display them with the chimney off because of the amount of room that it takes. I had one more thing to share with you. This house had the original door. However, the inside of it is quite faded. Part of the graphics are gone now. I've got a photo replica of that I'll be putting in there to make that door look right. And the door fell off as I was washing it, and the reason it did is because it's missing this hook down here. But I know how to replace that too. So when we get there, I'll show you how to do those two things. And it's also missing this original window. This should be a metal window, and it's got little diamond cuts in it. It should look like this one here, and the one on this end's missing, but I'll show you what we're going to do with that too. We've got a plan for all of this stuff. As I said, this house is in pretty nice shape. I don't see a lot of dents or bends or anything to correct other than right here along the front. You can see there's a warped up area here. I put my hardwood floor underneath so you can see how big a gap there is. So I'm going to take my hammer and I'm going to hammer right here, use my hardwood floor underneath to brace it, hammer that down till it's flat, and then I'll just make sure that's flat all the way along there. I'm going to describe the technique to you. I've done this before, but I'll go through it again. I use a rubber hammer. This looks like metal, but it's a hard rubber hammer. Put the hardwood floor or another piece of wood underneath. Start pounding here. I start gently, and I want that piece of that metal to go down, so I'm going to hammer like that. I'll start gently, go harder and harder and harder till I get that lined up where I want it. It'll need hammered probably here and then possibly down here too. We'll see. If I'd already painted this, I'd protect that with a piece of fabric or a towel, but that needs painted along there anyway, and I've not painted yet, so I'm not going to worry about that. I always like to hammer on the edge rather than out in the middle. If you hammer out in the middle, you could tend to get dings or dents where you don't want them. But if you hammer along this rolled edge, you won't. You'll just get your house straightened out. And I think that's the only straightening this needs. Okay, I'm going to get it done. That is a lot better. I think I'm going to call that good. Okay, we are ready to paint. Let me go through the steps on that, and then I'll get that done, and then I'll share with you what it looks like after that. You might recall I had a good idea that I saw on somebody else's YouTube channel that paints, and she covered her palette with a piece of like wax paper, and I did that. So this has been used on both sides. I'm going to rip that off, put a fresh sheet on there of wax paper, and then my palette will be ready to go. The rest of this is stains on there. It's not clumps of paint, it's just stain. But I'm going to put that on there, and that saves that having to clean that palette off when I get done painting. And every time I can save 5 or 10 minutes, well, that's more time I can spend either on my dollhouses or doing something else fun. I've got two techniques that I commonly use, and I think I'll be using both of them on this house. First of all, if any of these rusty areas are quite rough, I will sand it just very little bit just to knock that rough part off, and then wipe it down with alcohol again before I paint. None of these are particularly rough to the touch. They feel like they're about the same level or height as the rest of the floor, so I'm not going to do any sanding on this house. After that, I'll mix up my colors on my palette, and they tend to dry a little bit darker than they are on your palette, so keep that in mind. And I'll do a base coat probably here of an off-white along here, and then I'll come back and add a little dark spots to make texture so it'll match what's on the existing floor. This will be just a solid dark red over here and here on the front, and there are not too many other places that actually need painted along here. There's a few little blocks up here. I might just touch up some of those stains. I'll put a little bit of yellow right along here, a little bit right along here to fix that rough spot. It doesn't need a lot of paint. Sometimes if there are scratches in the paint and down here on this wall, you're not going to be able to see it, but there's a few scratches on this green wall. Well, I'll use a green Sharpie and fill those scratches in, and that technique usually works very well. So those are the techniques I will use. I'm going to get this painted, then I'll come back and show you how it looks. This is going really well, and so I thought I would share with you. There is another technique that I am using here, and it's going very well. These areas with this little bit of paint gone off of the front, I'm just touching that with a little bit of off-white paint just to fill that in, and then I'm going back with my finger and smudging it, and that is covering that, and I don't think I'll have to do another thing to it. I just thought I'd share that with you because I said I was going to paint it and then come back and dot it with some black dots. I don't think that's going to be necessary. I think this is going to make it look very, very nice. I mentioned this technique of using a Sharpie to fill in these really light scratches. So I just touch it with a Sharpie, and I've got quite an assortment of different colors of these Sharpies. So just touch it like that, just briefly kind of touch it. And then to blend it in, you can take a damp cloth or in this case I've got a paper towel, and kind of just wipe over that, and you can blend that in. And it's a very effective way to deal with small scratches. And I will use that on all of these little scratches that I have a good color match for. I'll use that technique, and then I'll dab a little bit of paint here on the edge. Look how much better that block looks. Let me work on the rest of these. I have spent approximately maybe 3 hours touching up the paint on this house, and it is looking really, really good. It didn't really need a lot, but it just takes a little time to mix up the right colors. I also touched up the roof. Sometimes I forget to do that till the end, but I do have it touched up too. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and polish the house. And to polish it, I use this product, and I just wipe it on, let it dry to a haze, and wipe it off. So I'm going to do that, and then when I come back, we're going to start to assemble that new wall. Before I polish, I'm going to give you just a couple of paint tips. Remember, the paint dries a little darker than it is when it's wet. You put it on there and let it dry, and then only then can you tell if it's a good color match. So if you're off a little bit on your color, not a problem. Lighten it up a little bit on your palette or darken it, and then put another thin coat over. So I usually do a coat, the first coat to kind of fill in whatever is missing for paint, and then my second coat is the color correction coat, or maybe even the third coat, because a lot of times if you're down to the bare metal, it might take 2 or 3 coats to get that covered, and the paint always dries just a little bit darker. Also, once you do a coat, let it dry before you try to do your second coat. Otherwise, when you do try to put your second coat on there, your wet paint will just kind of pull that first coat up. So let it dry before you do your second coat, and then let it dry again and do a third coat if necessary. I applied that polish with a paper towel, and now I'm going to wipe it off. It's dried on there now. I'm going to wipe it off with a microfiber cloth. All right, it's polished. I'm just going to show you the roof that you can see. It's picked up a nice amount of shine from that polish. And the whole house is that way now. It's all been polished. All right, I think we're ready to move on. Now we've got the house cleaned, and we've got the paint touched up, and we've got it polished. We are ready to move on. We're going to try to make this wall be like it was originally, because this has been, somebody fabricated it out of metal. They did a nice job. The tabs are in the right place, but I can't have like blank walls inside and outside. So I have got copies from my house that I used to have. This is a copy of the outside wall. This is the inside nursery wall. This is the other outside wall. And this is the other inside wall. So I'm going to cut these out and see how close they are to a good fit, a good match to put on here. Then we're going to glue them on there. The other thing I'm going to do is I want this window to be open. I want those little diamonds to be open. So I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and cut those out. So those will be actual holes. And on this window, on the inside, I'm just going to cut a square here, and so you'll be able to see the holes from the other side. That's what I'm going to do. Cut an X-Acto knife. I've traced over it with my X-Acto knife, and after I did that, I turned it over and I traced it over on the back too, because I could kind of see the faint lines, and I think these little dots are ready to pop out. But I want to tell you a little story on myself. I was working with my X-Acto knife, and I looked down, and because I was painting with red paint a little while ago, for just a moment I thought, oh no, I've cut myself. No, it's just my red paint from when I was painting the house a few minutes ago. All right, let's see if these little dots will pop out, these little triangles. I think they will. If not, we'll give them just a little bit more X-Acto knife. That is looking pretty good. Now there was a little bit, sometimes I could see the white paper edge, so I took my brown Sharpie and just ran it around that edge a little bit wherever there was a little bit of that white paper showing. Otherwise, it looks really, really good considering it's just made out of paper. So that's going to fit on here like, let's see, it'll be like this. Now, I'm going to have a hole there so you'll really be able to see through there. And I have marked on this side where that hole is going to be. And I have drawn it on here. And now I'm going to find something that I can try to cut this with and cut that square out so I will have a real window. These small scissors seem to be cutting this. Now I cut down from the top, which I'll cover that with tape so that won't be open like that when I'm done. But I've cut down here and I've made a hole so I can start to cut around here and make that rectangle. That didn't take long. That really wasn't too hard. Now here's my warning. You would be best to wear eye protection when you do this. Sometimes little pieces of metal can fly off when you're cutting it. And also be careful because this can be very sharp when you don't want to get cut. And dispose of this carefully in your garbage so nobody gets cut. Now because these edges are a little sharp, and I'm going to put not masking tape, but packing tape around and protect those edges. Now those will be covered up by paper, but in case somebody in the future doesn't know what I've done, they would be protected with that little bit of packing tape to cover those edges. And also I'm going to tape this slit back shut again. I have taped all of those edges for safety's sake, and I also dabbed a little bit of off-white paint along there because I thought you could almost see that a little bit when I put that window on there. This is the outside window with the holes cut in it, and on the inside I have painted that off-white because when I put this up here, the bright white was too white. So I painted it that off-white to match the rest of this wall here. So it's going to look like that. So we're going to sandwich it. This will get glued to the inside. This will get glued to the outside. That wall will be done. Then I've got this wall to glue on and this wall to glue on, and I have already cut those down to size. And the window on that was not originally open, did not originally have holes, and of course on the remake also will not have holes in it. The only other thing I want to tell you is I've already cut these down to size, and I found that the piece that goes over here was just a little bit short on this side, so I left extra on this piece, and I'm going to glue that around the edge there like that, just a little bit, and then the other piece butts up to that, and it will be just the perfect size. It's going to look like that. All right, let me get it glued. Now I like to use a glue stick for this, and I think I've got one, so I'm going to get it glued. Okay, we've got 3 walls done. 1 more to go. This one's going to go right there. Now I like to use a glue stick, and I like to just put glue around the edge. Sometimes other glues can tend to make some puckering out here, so it looks like you've taken paper and glued it to something, where if you glue around the edge, you minimize that puckering from the glue. That wall is done, at least this wall, inside and outside. All right, let's glue these on. I've got them ready to go right here also. This is the outside, and we'll get it glued on. I am thrilled with how this has come out. I'm going to put it up here in place and move on. Oh my gosh, that looks so good. Look at it. So remember, this is that replaced wall, just a photocopy of the original wall, but it's mounted on that metal that somebody was good enough to fabricate, and they did a nice job with that because it has the tabs on it. Look, I'll turn it around and show you the outside. There's the outside wall. Again, this is a picture that I had from another house that was identical to this. Come around here. This is that artificial wall, also just a picture printout. Look how nice it looks. I am just thrilled. Okay, we're going to work on the door, and we're going to replace this window down here, and then this house is going to be done. We are on our last stage of this house. We're going to talk about the door first. And first we're going to talk about the cosmetic. Now the outside of the door looks good. I touched up the paint a little bit. The inside, you know, I tried to put some paint on there. I think it's just too far gone. So I have pictures of 2 original doors. And the inside of the 2 original doors I have, one of them looked like this, which is the right pattern, but it's green. The other one looks like this, and it's white, but it's got a different pattern. Now this is what was on the 1951 house that I used to have. And this is what was on the I think this was on the 1948 house. So this would be original, but mine was white and this one's green. But nevertheless, I'm going to use that. And I've cut that out, and it's just going to friction fit in there. I'll put a little bit of glue in there. So that's the cosmetic side of it. The functional side, it's got one of the original hinges right here, very little metal hinge. The bottom one is gone, so this door will not hook on as it is with only one hinge. One hinge is not enough to hold it and allow that door to open and shut. The other thing I know from experience is those hinges are very fragile, and although it's still there now, it's very likely to break off in the near future, maybe even while I'm working on it. So what I've done in the past is I have fashioned a replacement hinge from a paper clip, and you have to have a longer paper clip, not one of the little ones. And this will fit right inside. The top part will go up here by the top hinge, and the bottom part will go down here where that bottom hinge is supposed to be. And I put a little bump here in the middle because I've put two little holes in here. I used a little nail and hammered two little holes in there, and I'm going to put some little wire through there and wrap it around this paper clip to hold that in place. Then when that's all in place, that will function as a hinge because there's two holes that these hinges are supposed to go in. There's two holes in the house. And then after I do that, this will go on and it will cover up that paper clip. That's my plan. Let's see how it works. Here's my little tiny wire. This is just craft wire, and I keep this up here in my dollhouse room in my workshop. Sometimes I use that for other crafts, like if I'm doing something to make flowers, but it works really, really well for dollhouse stuff too. And it's easy to cut. You can use these scissors, or sometimes you can use these little pliers with that little cutting part in it. We'll just break a little part of that off. Now I'm going to thread it through those two little tiny holes that I made. I just used a little hammer and a nail because I don't have a lot of real tools up here in my workshop. I just mainly have hammers and screwdrivers, stuff like that, but nothing that would be like a little drill or anything. So I'm going to put that in there and wire that to that paper clip so that paper clip will be held tightly in place. I'm going to put just a little bit of glue right here along that paper clip. That paper clip's right there on the edge of the door. And I'm just going to run a little bit of glue on there to help hold that where it's supposed to be. I've got that little wire around it. And in addition to that, I'm going to put a little tab of paper around this end because I want to help hold it down in place too. So I'm going to put that in there, a little bit of paper to help hold that down in place. Then we're going to put a little glue here on the top, and we're going to put that green door, copy of that green door on the inside there. And that should do it for the door. I use that 3-in-1 craft glue for that. We're going to wait just a minute and let that set up, and then ideally we'll poke these paper clips through the holes on the door, and I'll just bend both of those down to keep them in place. Here we go. Now you probably can't see, but there's one hole there in the door frame and one hole down there, and that's where those paper clips are going to poke in. Awesome. I don't think it's too much to ask that I have an original looking door and it opens and shuts just like it's supposed to. And honestly, that paper clip hinge is way stronger than those little bitty metal hinges that it originally came with. I am very happy. All right, next, let's see what we're doing. This is the missing utility room wall, and it should go right here, and it divides the front of this room from the garage in the back. And that wall is missing, and it was missing in my last 1951 Cohn house, but somebody shared a picture with me of their original wall, and I printed it out. Actually, when I printed that other one, I printed out this one too, so I already had it ready to go. Now I'm going to mount this on just a piece of foam core board just to give it a little strength and stability. And then after I do that, I'm going to use my glue stick and go around the edge, and then I'm just going to wedge it in there. Now I did cut the original tabs. I cut them longer than the original pattern, and they should come up here through the patio. But I know from the last time I did this, that was kind of hard to do. And there's tabs here that go through the floor too, which I can poke through the floor and tape on the bottom if I want to. But I know that was hard to do too. So last time I did this, I just kind of put that wall in there and it just kind of friction fit. So we'll try that again and see what else we need to do. That was easy to do, and again I just friction fitted in there. That picture is just the right size, and that foam core board, I just wedged it in. Then I reached around on the back from inside the garage, and I put a piece of packing tape that tapes it from the back of the wall to the ceiling in the garage, and from this back of this wall to this side wall, but inside the garage, so that will never ever show, and it won't damage the walls because it's in that garage where it will never show. Grandma says it looks wonderful. She likes it. So remember that trick. Now over here we replaced the walls because somebody, I just had to cover that metal. Somebody had fabricated those metal walls for me. But if your whole wall is missing and you don't even have that metal fabrication, remember you can use a piece of foam core board and cut that out to make it firm, and just cover it with what you want it covered with, and it will work just fine. Here's the angle showing you that garage door. Now this is the back part of that utility room, so I was able to reach my hand in there and put those extra pieces of tape in there just for a little added extra security so that wall doesn't just get bumped and fall down right away. We've got one more thing to do. We're missing a window here. Now, I understand that you can buy these windows on Etsy replacements. I have not done that. I've not looked there to see what they cost or if they're available. These are originally metal windows, and I think the ones on Etsy might be plastic. I don't know for a fact, but if you need a window, an original window, you might try that. Sometimes you can find those windows on eBay. But I have taken pictures of original windows. This is the outside, and this is the inside of original windows, and I cut them out, I actually got my box cutter out to cut those little diamonds out this time. And then I used my paper clip trick, and there's my paper clip in there. And I'm going to put those in those holes where those little hinges are supposed to go and see if that will work for this window. So it will open and shut and it will look just fine, just right. There, I think I've got those in those holes. Let me open this little garage door, put my hand in there and make sure I've got those in the right spot. Then I'm going to bend those paper clips down. I actually did that on that front door too. I'm going to bend those paper clips down. Here's a short clip. This shows how I cut those windows out. That is done. Look, that window will open and shut just like it's supposed to, and it looks just right. Now remember, this is just made out of paper. It was taken a picture of an actual original window, but look at it, opens and shuts, and it's just right, and it looks great, and it matches the one on the other end of the house. Once I get the roof on this house, guess what? It's done. There you go, dear friends. It is done. I pulled out the lights and put them in there so you can see how pretty that house is. Grandma is delighted. To tell the truth, she has barely spoken to me since I sold her house. So she is back I'm back in good graces with my grandma. She loves it, and she cannot wait to have her furniture moved in there. I put all the furniture from her other house, I put it in a box, so I'm ready to load it up and it will look just like her other one. Isn't it pretty, even though that makeshift wall? Now, I just have that roof sitting on there because I am that lady that anymore, if the tabs aren't put down tight, I don't put them down tight because I'm thinking one of these days, this house is going to have to be sold, as eventually I'll probably have to downsize. So however they are is the way I generally leave them, as long as they're sturdy enough for me to pick them up and move them around. I think I have a shelf ready for this house. I just have to load it up with furniture and get it up there. All right, dear friends, thanks so much for joining me. Remember, you have a friend here in Iowa and a lot of friends in our Facebook group, so I hope you'll join us. A lot of these hints that I have used on here, I've gotten from our Facebook group. That picture I got, that replica, I got from somebody in our Facebook group. So I hope you'll join us. There's a lot of knowledgeable and friendly people in those Facebook groups. In the meantime, please come back and watch my videos again, and I appreciate it very much if you would subscribe. Thank you.